Well, as a child, I was sexually abused. Um, Married off to an older man at a very young age, experiencing domestic violence. I was a victim of neglect and abandonment by my mother. So I was always treated like I was worthless. And this is how things supposed to be happen in my life. And I needed to find a way to cope with my reality. I mean, at age 9, I was experiencing sexuality that you're not even supposed to. Who do that to a 9-year-old? Moving into foster care, taken from foster care by my mom just so she can marry me off to an older man who beat me constantly. I needed to find a way to cope with that, or I would have killed myself. And I used drugs and alcohol to do it. Unfortunately for me, it introduced me to different public health systems. In a mental health institution, I was always thrown into seclusion. One of the worst things you can do to somebody that's a victim of neglect and abandonment. One of the worst things, because that's how I was always treated by my mother. And now you're going to do it? So when someone come with their tray of medication or tray of food, I smacked it out of my face, because the only thing I know to do is to tap into my survival mode, because no one has taught me to do anything different. No one has identified, addressed, or treat my trauma, so I do the only thing I know to do, and that is to tap into my survival mode. And my survival mode has always told me to fight, because I didn't know there was any other way. So I did what I had to do to cope, and sometimes somebody might got hit with the tray when I smacked it. So now they're calling a code and they're throwing me down to the ground, restraining me, a rape victim, holding me down and restraining me. Somebody that has been held down and raped multiple times, doing more harm, causing more trauma, but because my chart says that I'm a crazy crackhead, the stigma, that's what they go by. That's what they go by. And unfortunately, I was re-traumatized, taking me even further away from the possibility of healing and recovery. I was a desperate child, still trying to tell somebody what happened to me. Still trying to find somebody safe enough to tell what happened to me. You know, we go to these facilities and they give us these tidbits of good information, but most of us have so much trauma packed so tightly, the bits and pieces of information can't get down there to get rooted. We got to get the stuff out of us so we can get the good stuff in us, so we can change our belief system, because once our belief system change, our thought process change, and we start to make the best decisions in our life. We can't do that if you still believe that we're a crazy crackhead. 2004, I was in prison with my daughter, and I was terrified I was about to lose another baby. I didn't know how I was going to do that. And they kept telling me about a program that addressed your trauma and help you with your addiction and your mental health. I say, well, I'm all those things, and I'm pregnant. And but you know what? I still didn't really have that. I didn't have high hopes. I did it because I wanted to keep my daughter. I didn't do it for anything else, because they sent me to so many different programs, one where I was court ordered and the drug counselor raped me. So how do I believe that anything would work? Really? You court ordered me to a program where I graduate and I was doing well, and then when I went back for aftercare, the counselor raped me. So I really didn't have high hopes after 19 years ago in and out of the systems that I could do better, but all I could see was me trying to keep my daughter. And when I walked through the doors of Tamar's Children, somebody said, I'm so glad you're here. After 19 years of people shaking their head in disgust at me and just saying, you're just a crazy crackhead, and hurting me over and over again, somebody told me they were glad to see me. And yes, they did. They dug deep and they worked with me one-on-one to help me to deal with what happened to me, not what was wrong with me, but what happened to me. And they did it right, and it was a one-stop shop, because understanding that I was homeless, they made sure I had a housing grant. They made sure somebody was attached to the housing grant that came out and visited me once a week to help helped me to create a budget and make sure that I was taking care of the property and my daughter. And I was okay with that. Some women say, oh, they all up in my business. I needed somebody to be up in my business. And they weren't judgmental. They understood and they helped me. Truly breaking the cycle, because that's what the real picture is about. Yeah, treat my trauma or, remove the stigma to keep me out of your system. Yes, love that. But did you know that doing that was going to break the cycle for my daughter? She would be able to be given what she was given as a result. So we look at a whole different path from here on out for my daughter and her kids and their kids. I got to understand that it's a lot to do with what happened to an individual and how people were raised up or trained up. And then I could understand my job is try to educate them to remove the stigma, to understand the impact that trauma has on the individual. So instead of taking it on that, oh, you guys are awful. Well, don't get me wrong, I tell them when they're awful, though. But I also know that where there's breath, there's hope. Where there's breath, there's hope. Everybody has room to get better. I'm a living proof of that.